It's 2 o'clock now, so I would say let's go and let's start. Well, welcome everyone. We are going to give you a webinar going about navigating change. This will be about onboarding because there are a lot of, well, difficulties at the moment, but also we're going to talk about employee engagement and also managers. You will probably have a lot of questions how to deal with managing your team on board. So we will all get to those topics. First of all, well, normally in these times we do different breakfast meetings. We prefer to have those face-to-face. Well, these unfortunate times are for different reasons, so therefore we have a online webinar now. Well, welcome to people that joined normally to the breakfast meetings. I know that Josephine wanted to join, and apparently she's here as well. So welcome, same to Susanna. Well, let me tell you first a little bit more about Undutchables itself, because I've heard from my clients that not everyone at the moment knows Undutchables. Our contact persons, of course, they do, but they also invited other people within their companies and they don't have a good knowledge about Undutchables. I will keep it short and simple. Well, we are the leading agency that help you out with finding multilingual talent. So for instance, if you as a company are looking for a native German speaker who has experience in sales in a vertical software market, well, we are the ones that are here to help you out. We have different offices. Today we are hosting this webinar from our Utrecht office, where I'm also working. But we also have an office in Amsterdam. We have an office in The Hague, which is combined with Rotterdam. And also we have an office in Eindhoven. As we are international ourselves as well, we also have an office in Sweden, which is run by Karen. Also I know that a couple of our clients in Sweden are joining, so welcome to you all. So let me first go to the slide, so then I can give you a little bit more overview of that. So you need to share the screen. All right, so here you see, well, what we're going to do is talk about navigating change. Let me show you the program, what we have today. Well, first, the kickoff is by me, by Mark van der Velde. A little introduction, it's good for you to know as well. I'm already working for Undutchables for 3 years, well, more than 3 years already. I'm one of the only Dutch people in Undutchables. So we have a lot of international working for us in our different branches. My background is in hospitality. I've studied hospitality management in The Hague, and I've lived in London myself for a while. And before that, I've run different kind of teams and I've done a lot of onboarding. So later on, I will give you some tips and tricks about how to onboard your staff nowadays online, but also to tell you a little bit about the current recruitment and what you should and shouldn't do. Then afterwards, we will have the wrap up and the Q&A. Q&A is an important part because during this webinar, you can ask some questions. Probably in your screen, you see like a little icon says Q&A. There you can, put your questions there. Hopefully, all of them will be answered during our webinar. If not, we will get to them at the end and hope that we will get all answers across. So what is good to know today, I'm not only hosting this webinar myself. We are very honored that we have a special lady here as well. Kim Jansen, she will take the first part of the presentation. Kim is also Dutch. She is a psychologist and has been a professional trainer for years now. So she will talk to you about, the employee engagement and also how to manage your team from a distance. So I would say, please all give them, give Kim a warm virtual applause. So Kim, thank you for joining, and I will share my seat with you. So let's have Kim on board.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. Thank you for the introduction. We're from a distance from 1.5 meters. We have facilitator Kirsten Janssen. So it's great to at least see some people today, and not only my children and my boyfriends, but we want to keep it safe. It's great to have this platform. I really like the cooperation with Undutchables, and that I'm going to give you hopefully some inspiration and insights on how to keep employees engaged and committed in times of crisis, which of course is not easy. I'll show the first slides. So keeping employees engaged and committed, that's what we're going to talk about, or at least what I'm going to talk about. For me, this is also strange because normally I'm always standing in front of an audience, a live audience, but it's also fun to do this. And I'm really curious if you have some questions, but for now, the first part will just be sending. And I'm also going to give you some assignments, so at least we have some sort of a dynamic atmosphere. So I want to, well, first of all, who am I? I'm a trainer and I'm an expert in diversity and generation management and also in employee engagement. I won't say more about myself because then we'll just take of the time. So I want to immediately start. I want to start with a Dutch saying, and the Dutch saying is, in nood leer je je vrienden kennen. And what that means is that in time of distress, you get to know your friends. You really get to know who they are. And the same actually goes for organizations and for managers. You really get to know people in time of distress. You know, how do they deal with employees? What do they find important? Is the health most important? Is job security most important? Is making a profit most important? So some organizations are doing a really good job. Other organizations, not so much, and you can also see that on the media. So it's really like you see the true nature of people, you know, the true nature, how do you say that? Reveals itself. So sometimes if I don't know an English word, I will look at you because I'm a complete Dutchie. So, you know, this is a challenge, and people don't only see the true nature of an organization and of a leader and managers and colleagues, but also the true nature of themselves, which is interesting. And before I go into what organizations and managers should do, or what would be advisable from my side, is I want to share the stages that everybody goes through in time of crisis. And this is the same for every crisis. These are psychological stages that we always go through. And it's important because then you also know what happens with yourself and with your employees. So the first one is shock. We always first have a shock, like, oh my goodness, what's happening? Are we going to get through this? What does it mean for us? What is the damage that it's going to cause in the end? So that first shock phase is quite intense. I'm going to talk also about the role that the leader has at that moment. Then you get into, and that's quite strange because it's a very positive word, honeymoon. And of course, in times of crisis, well, especially this crisis, it's not positive at all. I mean, it's really, there are individual dramas going on and a lot of sorrow. But the reason why it's a positive word is because some sort of like life energy comes out that people feel, you know, we can do this. We're gonna go for it. There's a strong sense of togetherness and solidarity. And we have the feeling, you know, we will survive. Come on, let's go. Because people are more flexible and resilient than we actually think we are. And this life force and this drive to survive and this positive thing that's actually happening gives us the energy to create the new normal and to create IT, you know, that lining up the IT at home, to work at home, making sure that the homeschooling works, making sure that you have digital contact with your parents, anything you need to do in house, you know, to build structure. There's a friend of mine that her guest room was turned into a mediation room and a yoga room. Getting things in order to deal with this new situation. So it's really good that we have that, because then from that spot and that place, we can go forward. What I want you to remember of these parts is that now we're going to the second shock. And it's called a disillusion. And a lot of people are now getting into that phase. It's the stage where people feel, okay, this already took some time. I'm sort of tired of it. I don't know when it's going to end. How long is this going to go on? I mean, Tuesday, we're going to get some more insight, but we still don't know how big is the damage going to be. So people get sort of lonely, restless. Some people get even depressed. So it's important as a manager and as an HR manager and organization to know that a lot of people are now dealing with a lot of stress and this depression. So you're going to have to deal with that yourself, but also with employees. And of course, the last phase, reintegration, because as I said, we're all quite resilient, we're flexible. So at a certain time, there is some sort of acceptance of the new normal, of the new way we live, the new way we work. There's some sort of resignation in that. And we get used to the new way, the new situation we're in. I want you to, because I said I'm going to give you a few assignments, I want you to, and of course I can, it's so strange because I don't know if you're going to do it, but please grab a piece of paper and a pen. I'm going to give you a few seconds to do that. And now you're thinking, she doesn't see. Grab that piece of paper, because then really this webinar will be more useful. And when you have that piece of paper and a pen, write down in which phase are you now? In which stage are you yourself? And then also, I don't know, of course, how big your team is. I don't know how many colleagues you have. But maybe it's interesting also to write down the members, the colleagues, and think in which stage are they? Because they also need, different things in order to get through this. Some people may be still in shock. Other people are maybe already in the reintegration phase. So this is interesting. Right, so I'm gonna go through 6 different aspects, 6 different subjects, and step by step I'm gonna take you through it. So first of all, when you have the shock, the first shock, everybody immediately looks at the leader. First I had CEO, and then later I thought, yeah, CEO is a bit too small, but everybody, if the organization is small or big, everybody immediately looks at the boss, the person that's really above and that should react immediately to the situation. That person, it's very important that that person takes a proactive role. And the proactive role should be acting, taking, doing things, and also doing them fast, but also staying cool, because some people have the tendency, to panic, or they freeze, this fight, flight, freeze. But it's very important to act and to stay cool at the same time. Because people need, at that moment that the first shock is there, they need some sort of anchor to hold on to. They need some sort of direction. They need to keep faith and be encouraged in this difficult time. So there are a few things besides the basic mindset of acting and staying cool. There are a few things that are important. And of course, actually, this step has already been made. But I mean, new things will come to light, and maybe even new shocks will come. So it's important also to pay attention to this thing. The first thing is it's important to be honest. Don't sugarcoat it. Say, this is bad news, because for most companies, this is bad news. It's going to be tough. So be very straightforward about that, but also be optimistic. Also say, okay, this also gives us chances and we will get through this. And define the choices. Say, okay, we're going to focus on these things. These are the most important priorities for now. We're not going to focus on that. Make some clear choices that people have that foundation and have that at least some sort of grip during the situation. Maybe even define some scenarios, like a scenario, okay, we're going to get through this in a month, or it's going to take quite some time, or it's going to be a huge economical crisis. Maybe already define some sort of scenarios you see for the company and for teams. And the last one is the Wir schaffen das. I wanted to call it like that because it's very important, and that also has to do with optimism, is that you show, okay, there's no itinerary for this. You know, this is the first time we're going through this, but we're going to do it together. We will do it together. People really need that feeling of togetherness, so support that feeling. One thing I want you really to remember of this part is that normally, and a lot of people won't agree with me, but normally I say a lot, okay, try to be vulnerable as a leader or a manager, you know, show your vulnerable side, show what you're afraid of, and tell them what you're doubting of at night. Don't do that in crisis. When there is a shock, it's very important. At a certain time you can do it, but in the beginning, it's very important to show your solidness, to show your security and that you believe in it, because people really need that. So don't be too vulnerable. And maybe you even have to, you know, act a bit. But I think that's better because people need it. I think a lot of people are not going to agree with me. But I always like that. So after the leader has taken his or her role in the shock phase, is of course it comes to, you know, managing people and managing and motivating from a distance, which everybody is doing now. And sometimes people think, okay, the normal way I manage and I motivate, now I'll do that online. You know, I'll just transport it to an online surrounding. That's not possible. That's not how it can work. And I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's important to adjust the style of your management because online is really different. And also the situation is different. I mean, there's fear, there's insecurity. People don't really know what to do. They don't know where to focus on. So it really comes down to situational coaching and facilitating management. That's really the style of leadership that's important in this time, which already is becoming more and more important, but definitely at this stage. So, and what's important? It's important to be very clear. First of all, to say, okay, it's not a holiday. We still have to work. We're gonna even, you know, it's gonna be tough because we're gonna work from home and the communication is gonna be difficult and we're gonna have to adjust things. But we really care, it's not a holiday. Tell them what you expect of the people. Tell them what you expect of the team. And prevent that people get into that freeze situation. You really need to help your employees to not freeze and get all paralyzed. Make clear appointments. I mean, still a lot is of course uncertain, but make at least the appointments that from your gut feeling are the best. You cannot always know what are the best things, but it's better to act and maybe not in the best way, then not to act at all. So make appointments about, okay, what is the role definition? How many times are we going to communicate during the day? In which ways? You know, make sure that everybody knows what he or she is going to do. And then what I just said also is really, really important. Maybe the most important thing of this slide. And that's normally I would always say, quality is more important than speed. You know, clients will never remember speed, but they will always remember quality. In crisis, it's different. Speed is much more important. It's better to do things and then not perfectly than to not do anything at all. I mean, if this webinar would now, you know, if something would go wrong, people would understand because, you know what, we're all doing our best. It's better to do this webinar and maybe, you know, make a mistake here or there than not to do it. And the last part, which is extremely important when it comes to managing and motivating from a distance, is to really pay attention to the people. And what happens that in time of crisis, everything is magnified. So the character is magnified. So a person that's really creative and flexible and doesn't really need control, that person you really see, actually they maybe even like it. You know, they get the chance to be very creative and entrepreneurial. There are also people that really like to have the control and now are sort of stuck. So you really see characters magnified at this moment. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Second of all, there's the life stage of people and the home situations. And normally we're not that aware of it. We're not that aware of a person being single or having a relationship or having 2 children or 3 children or living with parents. But now we are. Now we really are aware of the home situations people are in and the life stage they're in. Because for a millennial that's single, it's quite a lonely time. And a lot of them are bored, actually. They have a lot of time. They really don't know what to do. They feel lonely. And I also speak to a lot of people that have, 4 children, and they say, I'm going completely berserk. And there are also people that live with their parents and they really fear, they're afraid of the healthiness of their parents, or people that normally give informal care to them. So every home situation is creating such a different way that people are experiencing this. And this as a manager is essential to understand and also, show that it's okay. And to ask about it and to ask, how are you doing? What's happening with you? What are your challenges at home? Because everybody has challenges. So help people making choices and also making sure that they manage their energy. So create a good structure at home. What are the working times? How many hours can you work at home? How are you gonna, combine it with your children or whatever? So help them to make clear decisions, that they have some sort of structure, that they don't get into a burnout or a bore out. I think I'm clear, right? About this one. But how am I doing the time? Oh. So communication. It's always all about communication. I mean, communication is always maybe the most important thing when it comes to cooperation, when it comes to managing. And now it's difficult because we have a very different way of communicating. So again, there's a challenge. How do we do that? How do we make sure that everybody knows what we're going to do? How do we make sure that we still have this contact and this feeling of togetherness? Well, some practical tips also, and that's the first one. Start with the daily updates. Start every day with a sort of a stand-up and give an update on where we are today, what did we do yesterday, what are we aiming for, what's the focus, how can we help each other. Ask people also to share, what are you focusing on today and do you need help from another colleague? So really have these moments to check in with each other. Something else is, and in Dutch it's called Jip en Janneke taal, but there's no way to translate that. So keep it KISS. Keep it short and simple. So explain things really simple. Also repeat it several times. So repeat it several times. That's very important. So that you prevent actually that there's some sort of gossiping or an informal circuit that goes around in communication. Keep it short and simple. If you are a manager, if you're a person that normally is very organic and has an organic way in chairing the meetings and like very flexible and loose, this is going to be more challenging because meetings online have to be leaded much more strict. So it's very important. Okay, there's an agenda. We're going to go through it point for point. Make sure that everybody has a saying. So it has to be much stricter and tighter than it normally is face-to-face. This is an important one. Make sure that you share also the private situation. So I would say every meeting, start with a quick check-in. How are you doing? Are you feeling okay? Is there something bothering you? Is there, maybe there's a child that's sick, or maybe a person is not feeling very well, or, make sure you share these private situations and these feelings and emotions, because they are there. And make sure also that you, compliments are always important, but now they're even more important. People need that motivation, they need encouragement. So really make sure that you share your pride, that you tell people that, you're doing a good job. Thank you for all your creativity. Thank you for your flexibility. Really speak out and make sure that people feel, encouraged. Make also sure that you tell people the line is open constantly. New questions will arise. There will be people not knowing what to do. So tell them the line is open. Not 24/7, because you also have life yourself as a manager, but it is important to tell them, I am available. Something practical also when it comes to IT, because we all know that it's important to have the IT means in place, but it's also important to have some sort of variation. So don't only use Google Hangouts, but Microsoft Teams, WhatsApp, Zoom, Skype. There are so many different ways to communicate and to use IT. So create some sort of variation so that there's a dynamic atmosphere in communication. Grab your piece of paper again and ask yourself, which step do I have to take? What of these things that I've just heard should I pay a little bit more attention to? Could I improve in? Or where am I already doing a really good job in? That's also important to know. Team spirits. And I put it between, how do you call that? Haakjes. Brackets? Brackets. That's a nice word. Because it's about the spirit that every individual have, and it's about the spirit that the team has. Of course, you have the formal meetings and the formal communication about the work and the decisions that have to be made and about, the content. But make sure that we still also, as a team, have informal contacts. And sometimes it's a bit like, it feels weird, right? To create that. But it is so important to have that informal contact. And there are so many, great ways to create this. I already said the daily stand-up, the kickoff of the day, but you can also do the coffee break online. You can do the vrijdagmiddagborrel, that's the Friday afternoon drink. I actually heard someone doing the Friday afternoon drink at 5 or 6 o'clock. Well, that's not a good idea, because then a lot of times it's rush hour at home. So do it at 4, something like that. But, have these fun things online also. Because virtually just chit-chatting and, also complaining a bit or just sharing fun things is really nice. There's also a really nice thing that you have stories and pictures from home office. That's a good practical advice. It's nice to use that. So the reason also you want to do this is that you want to take the working rituals you normally have and to create them online. So if you normally have things you always do as a team, think about how can we work these work rituals online. Because rituals are nice and they give a sense of grip, and they make people feel safe and secure. And maybe there are new work rituals which you can create online, which will be fun. So encourage people also to give each other help. And really the daily stand-up really helps to say, okay, every person one by one, Peter, Marissa, everybody one by one, tell them what you're doing and which help you need from other people. Encourage that. Keep people also active. It's better to do things, to give things away for free than not to do anything at all, because a bore out is even worse than a burnout sometimes. So let's stay active. And of course, make sure that in the home situation that a person has, it fits in. So maybe there's a long list that you have, something that as a team you wanted to do for a really long time, but you never had time to do it. Well, if a lot of falls away now, this maybe would be the time to work on the long list. And most importantly is, and it's always a bit cheesy to end with that, but humor and laughing is just so important. My boyfriend did with his work, did a Kahoot pop quiz. You know, it's fun, you know, look for ways to really have fun together. And because it's quite stressful times and people really need that. So make sure you dive into that. I'm being a bit like a school teacher. You have to do this and you have to do that. But think of, again, grab your piece of paper and pen, and what kind of thing could you do? Think for yourself, what could you do to make sure you give a boost to the spirit of people individually and the spirit of the team? There are probably some cool ideas. Right, real-time development. A lot of people, and I mean, of course, this crisis, again, I have to say, it's really tough, and it's individual people are having really tough times. So I always find it a bit strange to look at the positive, because I don't want to, you know, bagatelliseren. I don't want to, help me again. Exaggerate? Oh yeah, well, that's not the word I'm looking for. But anyways, I want to say, of course, that the crisis it's a terrible thing. We're going through a rough time, but also, and a lot of people, a lot of media are also paying attention to the positive side of it. And I do agree, because these things exist next to each other. We have the negative and we have the positive at the same time. This really is a chance. This moment in time really is a chance to experiment. Which procedures, which rules, which processes that maybe you already wanted to throw away or change or delete, can you do now? Because this is an opportunity to change things and to experiment and practice with new ways of working, and maybe changing the process completely, or, you know, some rules just say, well, we'll skip them. Why not? Because this is the moment, and maybe later on, when this whole crisis is, well, is past us, or at least when the measures are a bit more loosened up, then we can take that with us in that moment of time again. If you practice an experiment now, then it's able to do it later on. If you don't do it now, you're never going to change that behavior. So grasp the opportunity. Talk together with your people about the different scenarios. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the economical situation is going to be. So think together about, okay, in this scenario, we as a company or we as a team can focus on this. In the other scenario, we need to change our product, or we need to change the way we deal with our clients. Think of the different scenarios that are possible, and how can you react to that, so that the moment you're in the starting blocks or in the grid, like Max Verstappen is, or Lewis Hamilton, that you can get away fast, you know. So explore the opportunities also this time creates. Because the organizations and the teams that do explore that, they're really going to have a head start. I'm doing good, right? In the time. 5 more minutes. Okay. I like this actually. This is fun. I'm going to do this more often. So there is going to be a time that we have a gradual unlock. Maybe it's going to come quite soon. Maybe it's going to take some time, but there will be a moment that we have this unlock again. But what everybody knows is that it's not immediately going to go back to business as usual. That's not possible. It is going to be a transformation. It's going to take time. It's going to go step by step. So we are going to work in a different way. I mean, I truly believe in that life won't exactly be the same. And especially in the transition phase, okay, think of, is everybody going to go to the office? Just a few people? Are we going to work in shifts? How are we going to create, you know, the workspaces from 1.5 meters? You know, how are we going to do that? So think about these practical things already now, because adjustments are going to have to be made. At the moment, it's possible to have one-on-ones, physical one-on-ones, do it. It may be important to keep 1.5 meter distance, but at least the moment it's possible, sit together and take time, really take extensive time to have these one-on-ones. Maybe even 2 hours, you know, go for a walk or whatever, you know, really ask people, how are you feeling? How do you experience this time? And which phases do you go through? Have you went through? What was your home situation like? You know, really pay attention to that, because people will feel much more energetic to go to the next step. And every phase that you went to, whether it's a second shock, whether it's the reintegration phase, make sure that you evaluate it. Make sure that you point what the damage has been and also what the positive side has been, and what you have learned as an organization, what you have learned as a team and as individuals also. And use the agility that now we're actually forced in, because we're forced to be agile, but use that forced agility as a basis to set up the new way of working when the unlock is there. And that is really when you will hit the ground running. So take that opportunity. That's what I had to say. That's my story.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So now you're going to go back, right? You're going to go. Okay.
Seat, yes. Oh, here I am again. Hello, guys. Well, thanks, Kim, for having this inspiral talk. I think a lot of people will be beneficial on this, and hopefully you have all written down what was requested. So later on you can share your pictures, what you have written down. Also, just want to remember you, if you have any questions, you can just go to the Q&A button, where you can just ask your questions, and then, well, later on we will do that. Let me talk to you about onboarding. Well, almost all of you are working from home at the moment, and onboarding is not really possible anymore to do on a face-to-face level. So we have to do the onboarding online. So I have a few tips for you. It's like 5 tips where you can, well, do your onboarding online. So hopefully you have something about that tips. So the first one is a streamlining process. So, well, I've been looking up, and I saw that studies shown that around 50 procedures is taking to fully complete an onboarding. So everyone has to do 50 to 60 different kind of tasks before they completed the whole onboarding, which takes time, of course. In this moment, as it's really important, what Kim already also said, it's give clear instructions. Check your onboarding list, what should be done. So, and make sure that you first start with the real things that is needed before you start onboarding further. So create a list, and let's say do the first 20 items in the first week, and then do the other items later on in the stage. Reason why is because then you can have a grip on your new candidate. So you will go into depth with them and talk and ask what they need. So you will also create that engagement for them. So definitely go into that streamlining process. To make it a little bit fun, you can also do like, well, get some creative ideas. For instance, create a bingo sheet where you put down all the processes that need to be completed before the whole onboarding is done. And then the new employee can just cross off once they have done a particular part of that onboarding. And once they have filled out the whole onboarding, let's say, you can send them a present, send them a bar of chocolate, or, well, better, send them a bouquet of flower, because then you're also supporting the flower industry at the moment. Next to that, you can also do the one-on-one time with the manager. Well, already also explained by Kim that it's really important to have that, well, meet with your manager. I know that a lot of managers at the moment are super busy, but please take your time to get to know your new colleague and set clear instructions for them. So set up a meeting every morning, just 5 to 10 minutes, and ask them what they are going to do and where you can help them out, and check in with them again after lunch or at the end of the day. So if you invest your time now, that's more beneficial for later on, because studies also have shown that, well, 35% of the people will leave within 2 or 3 months if they don't have the great connection with the manager and if the onboarding is not being completed and not successful. So if you don't do that, you will, well, lose your candidate, and that's not what you want, of course. Which could be good as well is the buddy system. My advice is to get one of your senior employees to be the buddy of the new employee. What you get then is the new employee knows where to go if they have a small question. For instance, if you don't have a buddy, then the new employee doesn't know who to reach out to, and maybe he or she will send an email, but has to wait until she or he can go further with the onboarding process. So if you have that buddy system, you can also set up calls with each other, share screens, explain things, so you also know that your new employee will be guided and trained in the best possible way, because, well, the senior employee probably knows best. So that's definitely what you can do, and I advise that as well. What you also can do, if, for instance, you have 2 types of roles. For instance, you have a customer service role where you need to have the customer service part, but also a financial part. Then you can set also a buddy for the financial part and a buddy for the commercial part. So then you can shift a little bit. Next to that, training videos. Well, you can create interactive training videos, which is, well, engaging for the new person. And of course, it will take a lot of time before you have created that, but invest the time now, because that's also important for later on. For instance, if you have to onboard normally 4 people every month, and every week you spend 2 to 4 hours of explaining different systems or how certain procedures work. If you spend now 12 hours or 20 hours to create a video, how the procedures will be and how you have to rule with that, then you can use that. So next time when you onboard people, show them the video. They will do it on their own time. You can work on your work, and then you don't spend the 4 hours every week, but only maybe 1 hour. Make sure that if you use the training videos, that you will get in contact with the newbies and check if they have any questions. Maybe prepare already questions yourself to see if they understand what the video was showing to them. So definitely take some time now to create those videos, because that will save time in the future as well. Well, biggest part of it all is engagement. It's really important to engage with your new colleagues. They don't know your company. They don't know what the atmosphere is over there. They don't know you. They don't know their colleagues. So really important is to get that engagement with them. What Kim also already said, share personal things. In this case, I would advise, if you have a new starter in the company, create every day, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, a coffee break with one of the team members. So then they will get to know each other on a personal basis, which creates the engagement and keeps the employee there as well. So normally, if it's the normal time, let's say, then you will walk over to a coffee machine and you have to chit chat over there, or during lunch you will talk about your private life. That's not happening online. So in that way, create those moments for them. So set up those coffee meetings, or indeed also do a pub quiz at the end of the week, or the virtual bottle, which definitely could be beneficial. So that's how you keep your colleagues engaged, and well, that means that they will stay after this crisis time as well. So those are a little bit tips of the onboarding. So definitely try to streamline your process, get the one-on-one time with your manager, set up the buddy system if that's possible, use training videos, and definitely get that engagement going. So next of it all, I have a little bit to talk to you about the tech solutions. Well, you are all using solutions at the moment, but we would like to share you some tools that we find are, well, the greatest at the moment. So for online meetings, you can use Whereby, Zoom, Google Hangouts. Well, my personal favorite is Microsoft Teams. Reason why is because, well, I work in a lot of different teams every day, and with just one call, you can have like a whole conference call with that particular team. Next to that, you can share documents there as well, which could also be done by Etherpad, where you can work simultaneously on one document, which is handy. If, for instance, you have different projects that you have to deal with, use Trello on Monday, where you can have a good overview of what the task in the project needed to be done. So you can assign tasks to them, and then also you can see if, well, Barbara already started that particular part, or maybe she already finished it. So you have as a manager, you have a good overview about that. So you are all using the tech solutions already, but I would say invest some time to find out which solutions work best for you. Because probably in 2 or 3 weeks, we are not going to be back to normal. There probably would never be it will be a new normal. So if you invest time in searching and finding the right solutions for you, that would definitely be beneficial for you in the future. So then I also want to talk to you a little bit about the recruitment, what is currently going on. Well, as probably you all know, a lot of our clients, and well, in all of the Netherlands, they have frozen their recruitment at the moment, which makes sense because, well, we don't know what to expect. We don't know what is going to happen when we can be in the office again or even outside. So it makes sense, but my advice is to start recruiting now, because otherwise you are going to be late. How the recruitment process normally goes is, well, you have a new role open, you need to create a job description, then you have to put it online, you have to wait until you get some applicants, you have to review them, probably maybe you as an HR manager, you have to discuss with your line manager about who might be a good fit or who doesn't. Then invite them over for an interview, which also takes some time because the people that you want to speak, they have a job as well. And yeah, it's not always possible. So that will take another couple of weeks. Then probably you would like to have a second interview, or you would like to have a business case that you would like to present them. So overall, it shows that it takes around 3 to 4 months before you have done and completed your recruitment. So imagine that if you need someone by next month, you are already too late. So in this case, if you start tomorrow, which my advice would be start, well, not tomorrow on Saturday, but Monday, start then, and then you will have your new colleague maybe end of August, something like that. But keep in mind that also the people that you want to hire, they do have a notice period as well. In the Netherlands, you have mostly 1 month of notice period, but could also be 2. So if you add that up, then in 6 months, you have a person ready, and then you need to still train them. If, for instance, you're looking for a salesperson before they have filled up their sales funnel, then it takes another 6 months. So then you're a year ahead from now before this person is up and ready. So definitely don't hold back on the recruitment. To give another example, for instance, if you normally hire 3 people for your customer service department who, for instance, need to speak French, why not go and have interviews already? Even if you're not allowed to hire at the moment, just do that interviews so that you get to know the person and you know what he or she is capable of. Instead of, well, maybe going to the second round of interviews, at the end, you normally would do an offer. At this point, you will inform your candidate saying, hey, we really like you, we really want to have you on board, but due to the current situation, we cannot give you an exact starting date. But once everything is clear, we want to have you in the office straight away. They will understand if you say something like that. So it's better to do the recruitment now and then go and see in the future, then you take some time. It's definitely not needed. Well, a lot of you HR managers that are in this webinar as well, they are pretty much busy with all other sort of things. One of my friends, she is an HR manager, and she is working normally 3 days a week. And nowadays, well, it's mainly 7 days, because she is so caught up with all kinds of things, keeping her employees engaged and get them in, checking for IT solutions. So they are busy with other things. So what you can do is use us as an agency. We are here to help you out. So definitely it will, well, cost you time as well. If you want to build up your pipeline, we can do that for you. So let us know what you are searching for, and then we can be in contact with the candidate who you want to hire. A client of mine, they just hired someone, well, 1 day before the outbreak came. This person can unfortunately not start because they have to move back from Poland to the Netherlands. But I'm still in contact with them every week to keep them updated and keep them warm so that they are ready to go when it's possible. So definitely do that. What we also are able to help you out with is, if, for instance, the crisis is over and you want to scale up your business, which completely makes sense because maybe your production has like a downfall, we can help you out in that. We can definitely help with the scale up. We have that knowledge, we have that big database of clients that we, well, can share with you. Next to that, if you have any questions regarding like flexible contracts, well, we know all the rules and regulations. So we are there to help you out really as a partner. Most of you already have contact with one of our account managers. If you don't have anyone who to contact, you see in our slide that we have 2 of our experts. It's our sales and recruitment managers. We have Marianne Stoits. She is responsible for the northern part of the Netherlands, which is mainly Amsterdam, Utrecht, Zwolle, Enschede, and up north Groningen. So if you want to have any questions, and if your company is located over there and you don't have a direct contact with one of our account managers, feel free to reach out to her. The same applies to our lovely French colleague, Emmanuelle van Houdenhoven. She's responsible for the southern part, so The Hague, Rotterdam, Breda, Eindhoven, and Limburg. So if you have any questions to them, feel free to share it. Also, information from your side is really valuable. So if you have information about, well, how do you see this going to be, and when do you need to have more candidates, share that information. If we have that information, we can share that with, well, you as well. So then we can have a pretty clear overview of what the market is going to do. So in that way, definitely start your recruitment now, and well, ask us to help you out. We are here to support you, and I would say let's stick together so that we can well, get this crisis out of the way, and that we will be fully prepared when we need to be present. So yeah, let's get that big bang going, and let's start, I would say. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And I think now it's time to go through some questions that you have. So I'm going to shift my share a little bit to the left or right maybe for you, and get him back on stage. 1.5 meters, yes, it sort of is. So we heard that there is just one question. That's not a lot, but feel free to go.
Or it is really clear, or
probably it's probably really clear. So, what is the question? Sorry, I need to.
Oh yeah.
Q&A. So,
what is important when reintegrating your workforce to the office, apart from one-on-one conversations? Let me see if I understand this question. What is important when reintegrating your workforce to the office? Oh, yeah. Okay. So after the reintegration time, that when you go back to the office, apart from the one-on-ones, what is important? Oh, it's I find it a bit difficult to answer this question because I don't know what the regulations are going to be. So it really depends on what the government is going to ask from us, which adjustments we have to make on the work floor and in the office. So for me, it's a bit difficult to say, okay, you have to create these kind of screens, or you have to change the meetings to. It's difficult for me to say, but all I know is that there will be adjustments will be made. And at the moment you have more insight from the government about the new measures and regulations, already think ahead, okay, if we can start working in the office from whatever, half June, what kind of adjustments can we make, looking at the way our office is built and looking at the way we work together. So think ahead, you know it better than I do. It's really stay sharp at this time. Everybody really has to stay sharp. And that's not easy because we're also dealing with home and we're also dealing with their emotions and we also want to sport. But look ahead the whole time. Be a few steps ahead. So do you also have some ideas? Because I always have to think a bit about, because tonight I think, oh, this is what I wanted to say.
Yeah, well, we can get back to them, of course.
True. That's true.
But yeah, definitely, we don't know what's going to happen. Next Tuesday, I think there will be another press conference by the Dutch government. But if you're going to get back to the office, definitely, communicate with your whole team how to set it up so that that's also very clear. Because if, for instance, you can only go into the office with 5 people instead of the 12 that you normally have in your team, communicate what is the best way to get your people back into the office. So be really specific in that as well. And also, make sure that everyone understands. So follow that clear lines. What also Kim already said during your presentation, that's really important to give them clear instructions.
Yeah, and maybe some people will really, at the moment, it is possible to be at the office with a few people. I mean, maybe there are some people that really are longing for connection because they're at home alone. So maybe give these people the first chance to do it, the first opportunity. And then other people that say, well, for me, it's still okay to work at home. I mean, make those choices so that for everybody it works and that we take care of each other, that everybody stays safe.
Yeah, definitely. And also, you get to know these type of people that need to go back to the office because, you will be in contact with them on a weekly basis nowadays, which is therefore that's really important to get that going on. And then indeed you can definitely decide, all right, who is going to be back in the office and who can still work from home. What we said, we don't know what's going to happen, and let's hope that in a couple of months we are back to normal. But we have to see and wait.
Yeah.
Oh,
another question.
Heard from our moderator that we have another question.
What's the time?
How can we recognize if someone is mentally struggling with remote working or suffering for depression?
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is, you can't see it non-verbally. Well, maybe you can see it a bit on screen, but I mean, all the things that you see when you're face to face, all these little things happening in the body and expressions, we don't have that anymore. So you're really gonna have to ask about it. You're proactively gonna have to ask, how are you feeling? And how are you really, really feeling? I mean, ask people to be honest. And also maybe that's the moment to also show your own vulnerability as a manager, to also show, okay, I'm also, dealing with stress at home. I'm also quite afraid about, what's going to happen with myself or the company. And then really ask, what are you dealing with? Because everybody has challenges. And so ask regularly, not one time, but several times. Keep on asking people how they are doing. And that is an investment. But it is essential because I know there are a lot of people that are really struggling at this moment. So, watch out for each other.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. That answer is pretty clear. I think definitely will talk to your employees about that. I think we are, almost out of time. From Undutchables and myself, thank you so much for joining. We hope to see you in the next time as well. and I think I speak for Kim as well.
Definitely.
Thanks for joining. And yeah, if there are still questions, feel free to send us an email later or reach out to us.
Yeah. Or give also feedback.
Yeah, also definitely, it would be great. And go and open a wine or a beer because it's sunny and it's weekend.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.